Hamburg. I've been a member here. I can't even recollect. It might be like 7 years plus or minus 1 year. Yeah, because I grew up in Germany, and as I was born in 1968, and and then moved to the United States permanently when I was 20. I did my school, the formal schools, and then high school, everything in Germany, and then this 20 as in 1988, I moved here to the United States. So I'm more American than German at this point, but I'm always told, my dialect. I hear people know that I'm not American, and when I visit friends and family in Germany, I speak with an English accent. so, but let me see. My approach is a little different. I will have a few more text screens at first, but I will definitely have lots of pictures after that. This is a nice scenic from the center city of Hamburg. There are two artificial lakes interconnected in Alster, Außen Alster. They were actually made in the old days. They were made with dams, and I think they had people from Netherlands help get the water in there, and then this is a huge landmark, and around there are lots of old buildings, and there's always a nice city skyline of churches, which I can bring up. Yeah, Hamburg. I just brought this map up a little bit. As you know, here's all Germany, and then this is the spot where Hamburg is. Germany, as you know, has 16 federated states, and Hamburg in itself is considered a city-state. It's a state by itself, so it's one of the 16 states in Germany. And interestingly, Hamburg is here, but there are two little islands out there that are also considered part of it, which I found very interesting. As you can see a little bit more zoomed up, these are the two islands, and then here is Hamburg. I put this up here too, to show you my mother actually comes up from up here, Husum, where my dad was down here in Hamburg. Apparently, one time when she was young, she vacationed in Hamburg, and that's how they met.
And the rest is history.
And my uncle, my dad's oldest brother, had a lot of trips. He worked for the German as a telecommunication service, for the postal service. He commuted by boat, by ferry many times from Hamburg all the way to Helgoland to put up the telecommunication systems there. And that's just a little side story. I don't know, people might remember from the Second World War days, that was a huge submarine hub by the Germans at that time. But that was, my uncle was there after the fact. It's a nice vacation island for some folks nowadays. So this is the city of Hamburg, and it's surrounded by some of the two federate states, Schleswig-Holstein to the north and Niedersachsen on the south. But itself, Hamburg is divided in 7 sections, 7 districts. So I'm not from the center city. I'm actually, sorry, this is a little small here, but I grew up in this area, Eidelstedt. This is in Eimsviertel. I'm more on the outskirts of the city, so I didn't grow up in the center city. It was more, outskirts, suburban area, very quiet, but with a train ride within 20 minutes, I could be in the center city for all the entertainment. So some geography here. Germany is the second largest city in Germany, right after Berlin, the capital. And then it's the 7th largest city in the European Union, the EU. And it's, as I said, one of the 16 federate states. And the city itself, this is something I actually learned myself too, looking up some more information about my hometown. I was always looking at the capital, as how many people live in the capital, as in the city itself, and I always saw about 1.84 million. But then I didn't realize there were even the metropolitan and urban areas around that were not considered part of that count because it's kind of a city-state. So there's a lot more people even surrounding the main city. So it's pretty huge. But the city itself, they always just go by the number with the 1.84 million. The port of Hamburg is the third largest port in Europe, right after the port of Antwerp and Rotterdam, and is now considered the 8th largest in the world. Up to the Second World War, they were considered the 4th largest in the world, but then with all the bombings, it could never be rebuilt to its old state. And then also nice fact is it's the most populous non-capital city in the whole European Union. And Hamburg has, it's a beautiful city that people might not necessarily see, but there are lots of canals. You can do boat rides, canoes, and everything. And there's so many bridges, over 2,500 bridges all across the city. So they always say Hamburg has more bridges than Venice. And that's the most bridges of any city in the whole Europe. Just some flags. This is the most prominent flag that people will always see when they go. This is for Hamburg. And then this is our coat of armors, which can be by itself or also on the red flag. So this is something I wanted to highlight too with Hamburg, where it came, that got its name from. I've seen in some some of the youth groups here, when they had the German class, they tried to come up and determine Hamburg, but I tell you, it's not a hamburger, has nothing to do with ham or anything, but it's like the history basically came from the Hamburg was founded in 808 AD, and at the time being, it was called like Hammerburg. Hammer, even that one is a little spelled differently. I know when I was in Germany, I learned it like it was like a hammer, but that's an ER, not HAMMA. But it was, and then Burg is in English castle. So it's like a hammer fortress, but then they abbreviated to Hamburg. And that's how it got its name. Also it has nothing to do with any food items. Yeah. And then this is also in 1529, that's where the Lutheran religion took effect more in Hamburg, and that tells me too. Like I'm born Lutheran, confirmed Lutheran. And my dad, everybody was Lutheran, so that's I guess where I got that. That was more dominant, but definitely much more broad nowadays. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, so that Hamburg, as you can see, since it was founded initially in 800 AD, that it went through lots of wars. The Vikings from the north came down several times, burned down the city during those times, and had to be rebuilt many times after that. And then, all the different wars. Lots of rebuilding, and then the Second World War. I put on here 42,000 people died during the bombing. And it was pretty much destroyed, and even nowadays during construction many bombs get constantly still dug up in the canals. When they do constructions in the cities, they dig things up, bombs that did not detonate, so they have to constantly evacuate, sometimes there's several miles around the population, and then take care of it. There's supposedly still thousands of non-detonated bombs around the city. And then here's now the beginning. Here is the charter. Lübeck was the one first considered big Hanseatic city, but then Hamburg joined all that, and Bremen and some of the cities. Those are the big trading hubs around, as in Germany, and then the port itself. It's a very long, as an old port. You can see like 1889. It was founded by Frederick I, which. Interestingly, I know it was labeled as a Roman emperor king. I know Christian mentioned there was not too much in the north, but somehow that must have been the case.
No, I mean Roman time, right? The Holy Roman Emperor was kind of medieval time.
Yeah, all right, but it was interesting, but that's, you can tell that's a very old harbor. As we had that, they have lots of annual events. Yeah, Germany, in Hamburg, it's a huge city. So that's, since it's right, Germany itself is pretty much in the center of Europe. Most things go somehow at some time through Germany, and especially in Hamburg, and it is connected to the North Sea. Yeah, I don't want to cover too much of this electricity. Kind of scary. There are lots of nuclear plants around Hamburg, but it has been already in the talk now to take them offline and get to more environmental friendly energy. The Speicherstadt. It's tough to say, but the Speicherstadt it's a beautiful place. When you go to Hamburg, there are lots of channels. In the old days, when all the sailboats came, little boats went in, and then they have little cranes in the buildings that lift up all the goods, the spices, the carpets. It's a big part of Hamburg itself. The cultural, lots of theaters. I have put on here too many things, but I've been back since I moved here. Lots of the Broadway shows were brought up to Hamburg. It was pretty interesting that they didn't exist when I left Hamburg, but I've been seeing Cats, Titanic, Mamma Mia, Lion King, and it's kind of funny because they show it in German. so they don't necessarily sing it for the pub in English. And my kids, even when I had them there in 2016, my parents bought us Lion King tickets. So luckily, at their age, they were able to see, to understand what it was, because they knew it perfectly in English. Yeah, and a fun fact, the Beatles had a big start in Hamburg. There's a club, between 1960 and 1962, they had lots of small events there, but that's where they gained popularity and met some of the key people that started their record business. Yeah, so this is like where I was saying, the jazz and all. And here's some of the twin cities. It's incredible too. We have like 8 sister cities that we associated with. I didn't know some of them myself. It was pretty interesting to see. Very, very international. So again, this is a beautiful view from the inner city. This is our city hall at night in Hamburg. And then this is the same lake that you just saw earlier, which sometimes ices over in the winter time, allowing folks to go on there. I just show this is our main train station, the center up. And then just a little map, as most people, but if you go here in the main cities, you see the hubs, but here's like the center city, and I had to go all the way up here to get to my home, and then my grandmother was up here. I just don't know, but it's a beautiful city. Lots of the cruise liners being such a big harbor. This is the Queen Mary. This one goes between Hamburg and New York normally on a frequent basis. I don't know if it's now with COVID still the case, but cruise ships and container ships, anything is in Hamburg. You can see some of the cruise liners. Yeah, this is Landungsbrücken. This is a very popular as a tourist attraction right at the harbor. Lots of souvenir stocks and docks. This is the building where the cruise liners dock at and people depart. One of the biggest landmarks here is the Philharmonic. This has been also just recently added in the past years that I was here. It's a nice this is a nice picture giving you the insight where the actual concerts are giving. This is, people can go up there and walk around and do sightseeing. It's a beautiful landmark that's largest of its kind. The fish market, which is a fun attraction. Sadly, it was closed during the COVID days, but this is where a lot of fun things happen. There, the merchants, they usually scream and yell over the people and lure them in. But I know this at night, this place had changed a lot when I grew up in Hamburg. This was the hangout for people coming with the American cars. I had lots of, some of my friends who went over there, and yeah, when I grew up, America was very popular, and especially their cars. And then I know from some members here in the club, one in particular, who said he went over there with his Ford Mustang a lot during the day. So I think he might have been hanging out at night when they showed these places. But this is, yeah, Hamburg Blankenese. It's one part of the town. Beautiful homes, like right at the Elbe, but definitely you have to have some good money to be able to live there. So, yeah, and then it's almost like New York where they have the Central Park, but Hamburg, they have a 47-hectare area, all greens and fun waters. Playgrounds, I can even show you later on. There were some great playgrounds I played on when I was little, but it's a huge area, and they have like a botanical garden, everything full of flowers. It's beautiful. It's like a little longwood garden, I want to say. Major zoo. Hamburg has a huge, very, very famous zoo that was opened in 1874. My parents always liked the elephants, so that's what I put it on. They have little collections, wood carvings, elephants all over their home. Yeah, this is what I was bringing up. This is like the Große Freiheit. It's part of the red light district, but that's where I was mentioning the Beatles had their beginnings. They were going having shows and all. This is world renowned. So people, and apparently lots of folks like from England and Scotland like to come there and have some bachelor celebrations there. Yeah, Hans Albert, I don't know how much of old German TV you've seen, but he and Heinz Riemann, they were always together. But his dad, he grew up there, his dad was a butcher in Hamburg, and then he was trying to become an actor, did secretly take some classes, and apparently turned out very well for him. And that's some other fun, as interesting facts about it. That he was very famous around the world as the world wars, but his wife was Jewish, and the Germans, even because he was so famous, took a blind eye on that. But eventually, she had to go and went to England. They stayed in contact the whole time, and after the war, reunited. Neuer Wall, great shopping. This is like the luxury part of the city where you can buy pretty much anything. It's beautiful. And then soccer. What could be a city without a great soccer stadium? So it's Hamburg, the Volksparkstadion. Yeah, this is an interesting leftover. There were four bunkers around the area. 2 are still left. This one is now occupied by a radio station. And I always see this, it's near St. Pauli, the Heiligen Geistfeld. I always associate it because there's always the dome. It's a huge carnival where you can see it still in the background. It's always around there, but that is always another landmark. But the carnival every season of the year, this is a humongous carnival. So it's yeah, very well known. This TV tower, yeah, little sign as a fact that this is from Heinrich Hertz. Sadly, nobody can go up here anymore. When I was growing up in Hamburg, these were rotating platforms, and you could have like coffee and cake. But apparently, when they did some renovation, there was some asbestos found, and they did not restore it. And in the meantime, some of the fire rules changed too, because there's like a one elevator, and there's no escape route if anything really happens there when the elevators fall down. But this is the highest building in all Hamburg. But it was awesome. You could just sit up here, and the platform inside rotated around, and you could see the whole city skyline. Yeah, this is the St. Michaelis Church. My parents really favored that one. I went with them to many events, Christmas, New Year's, and it's a Lutheran church. It was Lutheran origin, but they have actually plaques outside for donations with names engraved of the donors, and my parents donated, and me, and then my kids. By the way, my kids are over there, Amanda and Lauren. They have their names engraved on those plaques on the ground there forever. This is the one part of the Speicherstadt that I mentioned earlier, where they store lots of goods, but some of these are now converted in things different. And this, I don't know if there are any hobbyists with trains, but this is the miniature land for all the trains. It's considered one of the largest in the world, if not the largest. And they modeled so many things, and they even added a whole like America, Caribbean, England, Africa, Netherlands, the whole Hamburg. It is humongous, and it's all live. They changed the daylight, turn it light and dark, and you can see it in all different effects. Yeah, here a little bit. I can say a little bit more about starting with a little bit my family here. This is kind of how it started here. This is one of the old pictures I could dig up. This is my grandmother, Martha, as a Friggers, and all her family. But this is pretty fun. That's one of the things that I sadly didn't have. All my grandfathers passed away all before I was born. My mother's dad passed away when she was 11, but he was born in 1891. So my grandfather, from her side, he was even in the First World War under Kaiser Bismarck. And he was a master baker, learned his trade, and he traveled the world, and according to her, he even did the equator certificate, that he was on the cruise ships and passed the equator. And yeah, he owned a bakery in Husum, where she lived, and that's where she grew up initially. So, but yeah, my dad's father, he was more like a foreman, from what I gather out, living more out in the country, and yeah, so was not part in the city, so I think was much better off during the wars than city folks at that time. Now this is how it started with me here. So that's me and my mother. As I said, my father was, I think, pretty lucky, because he is born in 1938 and my mother is born in 1948. So you do the math. And here my grandmothers, this is my dad's mom and this is my mother's mom. They're the only ones from my parents that I
That you?
yeah, the baby is always me, and but that's like they were the only ones that I kind of got to know, but they sadly passed away too in my early teens. But this is my dad's sister, older sister, and I will get a little bit to her, because she is actually one of my gateways how I came to America. Some more baby pictures, I don't know. But it's. I just thought it was kind of funny seeing the style, how people dress, the hair, outfits, and it's like typical for the days. And you can see how formal our Christmas times were. Like, it reminds me of the Peanuts movie, of a little Christmas tree in the back. It's just a spirit, but it doesn't matter how fancy. But I was really excited riding a bike, as I get my first bike, and you can see how formal are we going on a bike ride. That's my dad getting in a suit with me on the bike ride. There you can see we lived in apartments as of just when I was growing up. And that's my mother still lives in the same apartment that I grew up from the old days, and my room in there is pretty much the same. So my kids, they always when they saw that, they were excited that they could sleep in my room when they went to visit there the first time. Yeah, Indians, I know, like Christian was saying, that was a big hot thing in the days. Cowboys and Indians, so it was very American, and I read a lot of books with my dad. I don't know if anybody knows Karl May. He was a very famous writer, yeah. So I read pretty much all the books with my dad. We had all the books up on the shelves. So that's where we were dreaming about America, I guess. And as a side note, I was able to make things possible for my dad later on. I took him to Las Vegas and then the Grand Canyon, Death Valley, all over the places that he read about in those books. Yeah, so this is a little bit more inside where I grew up. We had like the playground in the back, but there were 3 buildings like this, and my dad worked for the German Postal Service, and at that time, it was called like a Genossenschaft. I don't know what it's like. It's like a kind of a union thing, where you bought kind of a certificate, basically part of membership in that union, but then only postal service people lived in these apartments during the days and could only get in. And then the same thing, just a few blocks down, it was all policemen. they were pretty much kind of segregated during the days, but now it's all mixed. That has been opened up nowadays, but people have to still buy something in before they could get in. But yeah, so my go-karts, I had lots of fun. This one was a heavy one. I remember it was looking good, but the pedaling somehow was taking a lot of leg force. It was not going as fast as some of the other kids in theirs. Yeah. I just wanted to show you a few glimpses in my time here. This is me growing up, 4 years, 5 years. This is, yeah, I know, I'm sorry about the picture side. I just tried to take some pictures out of the album, but with the parks that I was mentioning earlier, the Planten und Blumen, the Wallanlagen, these were some of these great playground options. And then here you can see fancy TV during the days. That was, with 5 years, I'm at the Derby. Hamburg had a big Derby, 4-horse races. So went there, and this is my uncle, who I mentioned as my dad here, and then my uncle, his wife, and he is the one that did lots of trips to Helgoland with the telecommunication. Yeah, 5 years. I don't know if just to get a few glimpses here, but that's over the years. Yeah, Fasching. Yeah, there's me. You saw me as an Indian earlier, and that's with my class in 1974, 6 years. He has an Indian in there. Yeah, so lots of my families. Here, this is my godfather. This is the godmom. They have their daughters. This is now my godmother and then her daughter, which I was a lot older than. It's kind of funny how my kids always try to figure out, my one daughter even yesterday tried to ask me, how am I related to her? And it's like, I thought it's kind of complicated. My mom's sister is the mother of her, and this is her daughter. So I don't know how to call it, like cousin or so, but her sister was much older than her. So okay, yeah. But this might just give you a glimpse a little bit about living over there in Germany. I don't know how much different it was for you guys, but I think that there's lots of similarities. Cars look pretty much the same, but they're very old pictures. Yeah, here's again with my grandmother. That's my mom's mom, so you can see her and then her. My mom was the youngest in her whole family, so that's kind of an accident apparently that happened, but it's my grandfather was married before, and his wife passed away, and then he married my grandmother, who was doing the household in his house later on, and then had my mom and another son. Yeah, but otherwise his kids, lots of kids, one of his sons even from the early marriage passed away in the First World War, I think with Russia. He's buried in Russia somewhere. So here's, me going to school, my first grade, my first time at school. I don't know, you guys might have seen these Wundertüten, they call them. So that's like, there's a little surprise in there, goodies that you need for school. Your parents pack them and you take them to school, and then you unpack them when you get your seat at the table at school. So that was fun. But I'm always laughing about how formal I was dressed during the days. Now that was big to do. My neighbor kids, like as I said, I lived in an apartment built complex. All the kids around from there, all the parents, we walked up to school. And that's one of the things too. I never had a school bus. You had to walk to school or later on bike to school. To my first elementary school,